In this episode, we're going to continue with the virtual assembly cell. And what you're looking at right now on the screen is the ignition manual that hopefully you have in your possession. Open up to page 120 and you see a graphic that has 2 conveyors, 5 cylinders, a number of photo eyes, proximity switches for cylinder position, a drill motor, and just a number of components. And this is just a graphic. I see this in 3 dimensions in my head. I'm hoping that the graphic is close enough and realistic enough for you to clearly see the 2 conveyors, the 5 cylinders, the prox cylinder position switches, etc. Now this is an ignition manual. However, if you go to the 500 manual, that's the orange and black, this is the same graphic that's in the manual for this manual right here. And if you go to this graphic, which looks identical, it's from the volume 2 of the 5000 series, that manual. It's also in volume 2 of the CCW with the Micro 800 manual. This graphic is from the CCW manual. This is from the Studio 5000 manual, and this is from the Select 500 MicroLogix manual. You see, it's the exact same virtual assembly cell. So no matter what platform you're working with, whatever set of manuals you have, you can do this ignition vision project. All that varies somewhat are the tag names. If you're doing this with some other platform, you can go to one of these manuals, write the code in whatever platform you're using, copy the logic in there, and do this HMI project with them. And now we're back to the ignition manual, same graphic, same virtual process. Now notice on page 121, looking at your project tree, your structure, under programs, notice that you have panel view 800, and you also have main drive status command. And then if you look a little lower, user-defined function blocks, you've got a user-defined function block for the PowerFlex 525. A little further down, you've got a panel view 800 app, and then there's your PowerFlex 525. The reason that these are there is because I did not delete them from the previous projects in Ignition. And we will go on to add a programmable safety relay, a CR30, into this mix. You got to use your creativity and your imagination, and remember, you're not trying to do it verbatim. You're following what I'm doing at least enough to get something that functions that you can build on. Here we are with our CCW Micro 800 logic opened here, and our Ignition Vision project opened. And I made a few minor graphic edits since the last episode. I deleted something up towards the top there that was part of another lab. And I also extended the base plate, this light gray square. It had been moved in to expose some things. I moved it back out. It looks like these cylinders are all mounted on a large aluminum plate. If you're familiar with weldments and fixturing and assembly cells, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Most of the things on this, in this window, as they call it, I call it a screen, are just drawn from over here in your drawing tools, rectangles and circles. Now I'm going to bring up the panels under view. Notice that there are no panels present. I'm going to bring up some of these panels. You see they're all unchecked, and that's to clean up the screen. All I see is the actual HMI. I don't want the component palette. I'm going to go back down to the Vision Property Editor. Now you see that takes up screen space. I'm going to draw this out till we see the whole image here. And if I click on something, for instance, if I click on a cylinder, notice it comes up and it says rectangle. Up here, rectangle number 5. I could change that text to something else. In other words, in the container, under the project view, the container has some rectangles in it. That cylinder is straight up. It's just a drawing, and I picked the color. The text is yet another object. See, text field number 3. And I could combine this rectangle with that text, and I could go up to the top here and I could group it. And then I could copy paste. However, the way that I drew this, if you want to call it drew it, the text for the cylinder is at the opposite end on this cylinder, and it's the same end, but it's vertical instead of horizontal. And this little thing right here, that is a grouped. If you go up here, you can look and see break apart the selected group into its child components. I drew this shape of the end of arm tooling here, the things that grips the part and pushes it into the workspace here. I drew that with this tool over here. But I'm not going to go through and tell you how I drew all this stuff. It's in the manual. It would just take way too much time to do that in a video you're trying to keep under 10 minutes, and I'm already losing that battle. Almost everything you see here is something that's just drawn. Now the scanner, you can see I clicked on the label right there, and there's a rectangle. That was the first rectangle I drew because it just says rectangle, not rectangle 2, rectangle 3, etc. A lot of these objects are buttons or multi-state indicators. Anything that changes color and text is going to be a multi-state indicator. These arrows, see, it's just an arrow, and all I do is control the visibility. If I go to the link next to visibility, it's showing that I have that object, that arrow, I have it bound to output 8 from my controller. And output 8 is the output that we're using that's saying that we're running this conveyor. If I click on this conveyor, it's again, it's a group, and it's not a multi-state indicator. And this conveyor is 3 rectangles. It's the big gray rectangle, darker gray, and then you got some lighter gray that are the edges of the conveyor to make it look like it has a boundary on it. Same thing with this conveyor down here. The drill motor, that was drawn from the tools over here from a rectangle, and if I were to zoom in close, you'd see it's 3 rectangles, and then there's some little lines on each end to try to give it more like the air vents on a motor. Almost everything you see in here are rectangles. I don't see any circles right at the minute. Most of this was drawn by hand. I realize everybody's artistic capability is going to be less than mine or greater than mine. You're just going to have to learn how to express your automation and your process on a screen graphically and then animate it. And keep in mind, we did more things to animate in this window than is really necessary. We don't need to make the parts appear, because in the real world, you got this thing sitting right in front of you. And if this is in somebody's office in another floor in the plant, they don't really need to see parts appearing. They just need to see some part counts. So keep in mind, this is not a legitimate practical application. It's just an example, and it gives you something to play with. Let's put this in the run mode, and let's operate it. Well, remember that these buttons down here are basically a request to make a part appear. The parts are going to come in from the top here, and you see the conveyor is running right now. And in your logic, that's kind of up to you how you want to instigate that conveyor running. Remember, this is upstream. Going out the top of this conveyor, there's another conveyor right above it that's feeding parts or components or materials onto this conveyor. I've got thousands of hours on the shop floor with processes and automation. I've worked on hundreds of machines, assembly machines, process control, cooking, making breakfast cereal, chemical processing, and that is a big help to be able to visualize your processes. But I realize that most of you, a lot of you, may just be learning this. Make the best of what we've got here. It's in the auto mode. I could put it in the manual mode, and I could extend. I have these manual operators over here, extend cylinder 1 and 2. Now what you're going to notice is that the graphics are a little jerky. What I did was, for each of these, I created more than one position, and I think this one right here on cylinder 2 may have 3 positions. When I retract it, see, it goes part way and then all the way back, and you can see that the timing on the visibility of these objects isn't perfect. You can refine this if you want. As a matter of fact, I challenge you to take what you see right here, get yours working, and then run it and make it look better. Extend cylinder 1, cylinder 2. You see how the appearance of those, the visibility is just a little flaky, but notice also that you have logic in your program that acts like cylinders extending and retracting. So see, right now they're retracted, procs 1 and 3 are on. You see all the cylinders are retracted right now. If I extend cylinder 1 and cylinder 2, notice that the retracted switches, proc switches, go off. Then after some length of time, the extended proc switches go on. And that's true for any of these. Cylinder 4, that's one with the drill motor on it. Extend, see the proc switch extended goes on. Extend cylinder 3. Notice proc 7 goes off, and after a period of time, proc 8 goes on, and it's extended. If we were running this machine, we might have a collision right now between this actuator, cylinder 2, and cylinder 3. It just depends on what's in this space right here. And extend cylinder 5. See, the proc switch goes off, then another one goes on. I'm going to retract all of these. Now, the reason we have 4 buttons for extend retract is because we have put cylinder 1 and cylinder 2 under the auspices of one output. That's because in our original project, we didn't have enough inputs and outputs. We had 6 in and 6 out. That's all we had to work with. We had to kind of spread out. If we wanted an output to run these 2 conveyors, there's 2 right there. We couldn't have 5 cylinders. That would be 7 outputs, much less adding anything else. This is all in the manual, and I'm not going to explain all of the generation of the artwork. There's also the position of some of these objects. These actuator arms right here on the cylinders, they are behind the cylinders in the drawing. If you have any experience with doing graphics, you know that you can put things in front, or you can put them in the back, or somewhere in between. You got to pay attention to all that. That explanation is all in the manual. Let's feed conveyor. See, turns it on, the green arrow. In some applications, I might have made this a multi-state indicator and it changed color with arrows and stuff. But I want to keep this clear for parts, components that are coming down the conveyor. I just use a green arrow. Turn it back off and run the other conveyor. Same thing, green arrow. Okay, we're in the manual mode. Let's go back to the auto mode and let's turn on 1PE. I may make a mistake in the sequence, okay, in which case I would have to back up and do it again. I'm not going to do that in this video. It takes too much time. Basically, I hit 1PE, and that is saying there is a part at the entrance of the conveyor in front of the barcode scanner. And 1PE senses it. When 1PE senses it, then the scanner is going to capture a part number off a barcode and send it on into the sequence. I'm going to turn off 1PE, or I'm going to remove that part from in front of the scanner, and now it appears in a position where if you extended cylinder 1, it could block it, so to speak. But we're not going to do that. We're going to say it reaches PE2, blocks PE2, and that's going to cause the cylinder to extend. But wait, cylinder 2 did not extend and push the part into the workspace to be lost from PE2 and seen by PE3 to drill a hole in it. And the reason it didn't is because I have logic that you created in your lab project manuals for either 500, 5000, or Micro 800 CCW that basically says if a part is scanned, leaves PE1, and doesn't get to PE2 quick enough, it times out. as if it's jammed or somebody grabbed it off the conveyor. Something happened to it, because we don't want to hang up the process because a part left PE1 didn't get to PE2. In my pontificating between PE1 and PE2, it timed out. Let's try that again. We're going to put a part at 1 PE, and then it's going to leave 1 PE. It's going to appear on the way, and then it's going to arrive at 2 PE. It extends, clears 2 PE, 3 PE sees it, and now cylinder 4 extends, drills a hole in it, and then at some point cylinder 3 is going to turn on. It's going to push it out. 4 PE is going to see it, and then the conveyor turns on. See the green arrow turned on. It's going to leave 4 PE, and it's going to reach 5 PE, but it's not going to stop because it's going to keep on going off the conveyor down to packaging, because I have the call on. This is a downstream call. I'm going to turn that off. Notice that's a signal that comes from another PLC down in packaging to this PLC saying that it wants parts. Otherwise, the part would stay right here at PE5. Let's do that again. Part at PE1 passes by, keeps on going to get to PE2. Cylinder 2 extends and 1, appears in photo I3. The drill motor comes in, drills a hole, retracts, and then cylinder 3 extends down until, see, I didn't time that quite right to make this transaction here. But if you play with this, you'll see what I mean. It appears at PE4, the belt is running, which means it will pull it away from 4 PE4, until it reaches 5 PE. When it does, cylinder 5 extends to block it from going downstream. Now this is not really necessary, this cylinder. If you turn off the conveyor, it's going to sit right there in front of PE5. So right now, if we run in another part, turn off the part at 1 PE, it gets to 2 PE, cylinder extends, turn off 2, PE3 sees it, and we drill a hole, we retract, turn on PE3, or the cylinder 3, part 4 or photo I4 sees it, but the conveyor doesn't come on because there's one already in front of PE5. I encourage you, strongly encourage you, to play with this and refine it. Thank you for watching.